What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Saw review series. Now it's time to review Saw 3. April Fools. So April Fool's Day tells the story of a group of college kids going off to an island resort for the weekend, and then one by one, somebody starts to pick them off. What's up, guys? Happy April. This is actually a slasher film that I have never seen before. I did a blind buy on Amazon, and I figured, you know what the hell? Let me go ahead and review it for April Fool's Day. It's fitting, right? Damn right it is. So this is a film that's actually quite interesting because I didn't know a whole lot about it going in. I've heard the title before. There's a lot of like old 80s like holiday slasher films. I know that there's either controversy or celebration over the ending, so I knew there was going to be some twist coming, which I kind of looked at the title and pretty much figured out what the twist was going to be anyway. But nonetheless, this is a movie that I threw on, no expectations, and I actually enjoyed it. That's right, it's usually a gigantic gamble. It's a big dice roll for me whenever I pick up some of these old kind of cult classic or forgotten slasher films that have their fan base, have their following, but then I'm throwing them in for the first time with no knowledge of them in 2020. A lot of times I'm like, oh, this isn't very good at all. But April Fool's Day actually has a few surprises along the way, and that's my first positive for it, is for a genre, especially in that era, that had pretty much played out every single trope that they started within that decade. April Fool's Day actually does a good job at pulling out a few tricks that we haven't seen before, at least that I haven't seen before in 80s slasher films. It does have a good, smart script to it. It does have some good ideas along the way on how to subvert the genre a bit, on how to subvert your expectations, while along the way having the flavor of the genre that you love. So I think it was actually a well put together movie.
Rob?
Jesus.
Rob.
It's hard to skip a Nan.
And I liked the characters. That's something that most often usually kills an 80s slasher film for me, is that if the characters are just generic, or I don't like them, or they're annoying. And you know what? There's actually a pretty likable cast in this film. The only one that I genuinely recognized, actually the two that I genuinely recognized, is Amy Steele, famously from Friday the 13th Part 2, and Biff. Biff is in this movie. Holy shit, he's in another movie besides Back to the Future. I've never seen him in anything else. But you have this cast of characters, these college kids, and the whole kind of shtick of the movie is that they're going to this little vacation spot, but they're going to be pranking each other the whole time. So from the time the movie starts all the way through to the killing starting, people are just playing pranks on each other. You have where like a dude tries to turn the lamp off and it turns the light off overhead. He goes to turn that off and it turns the lamp off across the room, and you're just laughing because he wants to go to sleep. You have this really fun trick where every time Biff sits down in a chair, it like collapses and he falls backwards, and then it puts itself back together and sits back up. I remember I actually looked at Holly, I was like, that's badass. How do they do that? Because that chair is awesome. But alongside the characters, just the whole setup of the film is fun. And that's something that a lot of times 80s slashers struggle with, to where if the killing's not happening, the movie tends to kind of go down into a lull and lose my interest sometimes. Where April Fool's Day, I was enjoying myself. I was laughing. I was trying to figure out what prank was gonna come next. So even before I started getting into the horror side of things, I was just having a fun time with this film. I really like the music too. It's different. You know, the movie opened up, and even on the Blu-ray screen, a song started, and it was like, oh, so you're crazy, or some old, you know, little finger tapping music, and I'm like, is this gonna be a really goofy movie? And it has some fun with it, but there's some tones that it goes for with the music that has that fun kind of jovial sense to it, while at the same time there's like a little undercurrent of some shit's about to go down. So again, I've never heard anybody talk about the score from April Fool's Day, but I liked it. And my final positive is I did like the ending. You know, I was kind of reading up on some things afterwards. I didn't want to research it and blow the ending for me, but afterwards I looked it up, and I guess it was kind of split down the middle with critics when it first came out, with slasher fans, where you had some people that was like, wow, that was really cool and smart and unexpected, and you had other people that were like, fuck that, that's a giant cop-out, I hate this movie. And you know what? You might be on either end of that, even watching it today in 2020, but I actually thought it was a fun little twist. I did see it coming, you know, it didn't surprise me, but I thought it was different enough. It makes the movie stand out, And even though, something that I'm going to get into in my negatives as far as the carnage candy, even though it kind of cuts the legs off of that, I thought it subverted enough to where it makes this movie stand out in my mind to where I would actually enjoy watching it again. Now, as far as my negatives with April Fool's Day, yeah, there's not a whole lot of gore in this movie. There's a couple of shots in here that have the gore effect to them. But overall, this is a movie that's mostly cutaway kills. This is a movie that has a lot of things that's going on behind the scenes. That's a lot of suggestion. And, you know, I like gore. I like slashers that have gore. I've constantly criticized slashers that don't have gore, because to me, if you're gonna have a slasher, you need to go balls out, you need to go rated R, you need to be bloody. And this certainly is one of those movies that is kind of an exception to the rule, because I enjoy overall why they couldn't have a lot of gore, and the reason makes sense to me and I get it. But at the same time, when you have an 80s slasher film like this, where you have to endure the common pitfalls of that genre, when you have to endure the common negatives of that genre, like the acting quality, the filmmaking quality, how much is actually going to happen with this story, it's just going to be about people getting killed at the end of the day. Whenever you have all of that, usually you take it down with the chaser of there's some cool gore and some cool kills. And this movie doesn't necessarily have that for you. So if you're somebody that only likes watching slashers for the gory kills, or you only like watching these old kind of cult classic 80 films if it has some cool, you know, pre-CGI, practical effect gore, this movie might not be for you.
Fuck! Look out!
And my final negative is the character of Muff. Now, again, sometimes on first watches you don't pick up every single detail. I had a very hard time figuring out why all of these college kids were hanging out with this chick in the first place. Now, she's the one that owns this house. She's the one that, you know, kind of invited him in. There's a couple of people here and there that are like, oh my, we're such good friends with Muff. I never felt that in the movie whatsoever. Muff always felt like this weird caretaker that would just kind of pop into scenes to act really weird and awkward, and they would just kind of do their own thing as a group without her. So I never really understood that friendship, why they would go all this way to hang out with her for a weekend when she's just so fucking weird. But overall, guys, I had a pretty good time with this movie. I think that if you're a fan of the genre, if you want to see all the different little, you know, paths that the 80s slasher genre took in the 80s, I think this is one you should actually seek out and check out. I don't regret buying it whatsoever, which is something that I can't say for a lot of the movies that I've blind bought. But I had a good time with it. I thought that they subverted the expectations enough. It has enough of what I go for a slasher film, and I enjoyed the characters. Holy shit, what a revelation. So if you're a fan of holiday slasher flicks, definitely add April Fool's Day to your collection. It's got some nice surprises along the way, and I think most of you will like what it does. So go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of April Fool's Day? Has this always been one of your favorite holiday slashers? Have you always been somebody that hates the direction that it goes and don't like the ending? Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comment section below, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, as always, and please remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.